Good evening. Welcome. My name is Antoinette Peel, and I am the president chair of the Joshua Johnson Council. It's the Baltimore Museum of Art's African American Friends Group or affiliate group, one of the oldest African American friends groups in the nation. And we're here this evening to talk to one of our local artists that is going to be introduced to you by our wonderful liaison, Dave Issa. But we're first going to talk to you about JJC, what it is, and how you can become a member. Rose, take it away.
Good evening. I'm Rose McNeil, and I'd like to welcome you to the 2021-2022 season of Joshua Johnson Council's JJC Talks. Our live stream Artist Talks promises to broaden the public experience of contemporary art made by artists of African descent. JJC is thrilled that you took the time out of your busy schedule to hear from tonight's guest artist, Rasheem. The Joshua Johnson Council is one of the oldest African American museum support groups in the US, and we're currently celebrating our 36th year. The JJC is named after an 18th century African American portrait painter, Joshua Johnson, who lived and worked in Maryland. It is our mission to forge meaningful connections between Baltimore's African American communities and the Baltimore Museum of Art by promoting and highlighting the achievements of African American artists. The JJC membership offers a wide range of opportunities for active participation within a network of friends and colleagues dedicated to art. Our members share a passion for African American art, and we are artists, art lovers, museum goers, collectors, educators, students, docents, and others who care about connecting with artists and the community or the museum. JJC business meetings are on the second Thursday from September to June at 6 p.m. and the JJC talks begin at 6:30. The Baltimore Museum of Art offers a number of ways for art lovers to become more involved in the museum's work. We invite you to join the Baltimore Museum of Art and the JJC or the Joshua Johnson Council. To join the BMA, call 443-573-1800 or visit membership at artbma.org. To join or renew JJC membership, please call 443-573-1789 or join online at artbma.org/JJC. Also, you can follow us on Facebook at the Joshua Johnson Council. I hope you enjoy this evening's guest speaker. Please return each month and spread the word about JJC Talks.
Rose, thank you so much for your thorough introduction and your energy you bring. My name is Dave Issa. I'm the Director of Public Engagement here at the BMA. What's really great about this season of JJC Talks is, as with the rest of the world last year, we went through a pandemic pivot, and that pandemic pivot has actually brought a lot of clarity to what we want to bring moving forward. So this is something that has been baked into our DNA moving forward and has really expanded and challenged the type of audience that our work, which has been going on, as Rose said, for 36 years, how far we're expanding our reach and how we are bringing these Baltimore-based artists beyond just a Baltimore physical audience. So this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Rasheem. She is a self-taught mixed media community artist based in Baltimore, working in pencil, pastel, charcoal. In addition to her robust exhibition history, she has led a group of high school students with the Baltimore City Youth Works program, building collaborative murals across our city. She's a really incredible artist, and at this point, it is my job to stop talking and pass the mic. Thank you so much, Rasheem, for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate just being in this space. I could tell you as a little girl, a little brown girl from the South, I never imagined that someone would be asking me questions at an art institution about things that I've doodled on sheets of paper, and especially not doing things like writing on walls, which I got scolded for quite a bit. So as an adult, I find that I'm still doing a lot of that writing on walls and doodling on paper. And I'm just glad to be in a space that like really appreciates and rewards that at this point in my life. I'll just go ahead and go through a PowerPoint of a series of questions, and then I'm sure Antoinette is going to then ask me some questions. Is that how we're going to flow? Yeah. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and share. Nope, not that screen. I will go ahead and share my screen and just give an overview of
the book. Let me let you go. They're ready?
Yes.
Okay.
One moment. It's so interesting. Earlier we were talking about technology and the ways in which technology is just constantly transforming and changing really like how we operate and move in space. And one of the things that I really, really appreciate about Baltimore Museum of Art is the way in which just taking a physical space and making it digital is just a reiteration for me that art is for everyone. And so I'm really glad to just be on a platform that celebrates that and is utilizing this whole component of art being for everyone. So let's see if I'm sharing the right screen now. Okay, here we go. That is my screen. Can you see me up against a yellow wall? I think so.
Yes, we can see that.
Fantastic. So I'm going to present more. So this is me. I'm standing in front of one of my more recent murals, and this is just background about me. I'm a mixed media artist. I'm also an art administrator, artivist, teaching artist, community artist, and a cultural curator. And I'm going to say a little bit more about what I mean by those things and not just throw them out, because I think sometimes in the art world, people say those things, but it's like, exactly what do we mean when we apply these particular titles to folks? So I'm going to get into that. This is just really an overview of like who I am and how I approach and like what motivates and inspires my art. And I call myself a womanist artist. And what that just means to me is that I encourage a critical examination of society and of culture through the lens of race, gender, sexuality, and class. And my work very frequently centralizes the lives and experiences of marginalized populations. The next slide, I'm going to show you an example of what I mean by marginalized populations and the intersection of race, class, and gender. So in this series is called She Handsome, and it's a mixed media series that features and focuses on masculine of center women, or people who are assigned female at birth, rather. So to give a background, and I'll just read a bit of a synopsis of this series to give you context. She Handsome is a mixed media series that takes an intersectional approach to decolonizing figurative beauty by centering the images of persons assigned female at birth that identify as masculine of center. Masculine of center is a term that was actually coined by, she is actually currently a Baltimore resident, B. Cole of the Brown Boy Project. They are also co-owner of Dovecote, and they coined that term in their master's thesis statement, masculine of center. Masculine of center is something that recognizes the breadth and the depth of identity for lesbian, queer women who tilt toward the masculine side of gender scale, and includes a wide range of identities such as butch, stud, aggressive, AG, dom, tomboy, or trans. This particular series can best be described as a cultural critique that interrogates the definitions of masculinity and as exclusively the domain of persons that were assigned male at birth. That was kind of the aim and the focus of this particular series, to kind of centralize the lived experience of these folks. Largely because that was something that I did not see in the art world. When I would see women, particularly when I would see Black women, they were hyper feminine or non-visible, right? Or they were positioned in a way as more or less a prop or a piece of telling a story, but not centralized, and very much, again, feminized and for a very specific gaze, right? And so what I didn't see is women that I found attractive, women that I found appealing, that were in fact handsome. And so that is the birth of this series. And that's what I mean in that earlier piece when I'm saying I'm centralizing folks at those particular intersections. One of the other terms that I use in my description is I also refer to myself as a community artist. What exactly does community artist look, and what does that mean? So this is just an example of two different community art projects that I participated in, that Dave mentioned earlier, that I've done in the summers through Youth Works program with a group of teenagers over the summer. So to the left, that's a community art project. That's for a community that's not based in geography, but one that is very much connected in identity, right? So this is within an artist residency. This space is unapologetically Black, unapologetically queer, and unapologetically gender nonconforming. And one of the things that when I was talking to one of the owners that we discussed is I asked her, what do you want people to feel when they come in this space? What do you want them to get out of it? And that sort of thing. And she talked a lot about the future. And I talked to other artists and they talked a lot about the future. So there's a series of pieces within this one, again, to the left, with the deity with the 6 arms. In that piece, all of the pieces are futuristic. So the theme was very much connected to Afrofuturism. So in each one of the beings painted, there is a symbol of art that is adorned on their head. For her is mics. So her hair, or this deity's hair, is microphones. There's another one where there's a cyclops, and that cyclops, their eyeball is the flash lens, like a photographer. There's androids at that same building where one android has pencils, the other android's hair has erasers. And then each embodied deity has a symbol that means something. So on this one, that's the symbol for creativity. The image to the right is a community arts project. It was a garden box project that is in Pimlico, and it's right across the street from a school. And it was just images so that the community can see themselves reflected in that area and see it as something beautiful. So this was just one of those garden box projects, and I'll show you it in a wider. So this was the street. I don't have the before and after, but if you saw the before and after, there weren't grass and it definitely wasn't garden boxes. So I worked with the youth. We went out to the community, surveyed the community, asked them how they felt about the community, what they would like to see, and that sort of thing. And just I work with them to create these images. It's right across from a school, and they talked a lot about education. So you'll see the one young person reading a book, and then the next one, another person reading a book. And if you could see on the sides, they have different symbols, African symbols that mean different things around prosperity, hope, and unity, and collective work and responsibility, and that sort of thing. More on being a community artist. This is a recent community project. Again, engaging with the community means asking the community what they want to see, how do they feel about their community. It does not mean you go into a community and you just start painting on walls without having a conversation with a single person there. Community artists, what it means to me to be a community artist is you dig deep. It does not mean that you just go into a neighborhood and start painting. You need to talk to people. You need to interact with people. You need to not come with a preconceived idea or notion about what would look good in someone else's space. I equate it with going to another person's house and then decide to just come in and start painting and moving around furniture without asking any questions and telling them that you're doing this because this will make their house look better without even talking to them about whether or not they think their house needs to be made better or if they like that particular color. So some of the themes that came up were hope, determination, and possibility. The the image where it has the green background, that's looking forward to hope. And then the image with the purple background is the youth, and they're looking at possibilities. You see them looking into their hand. You don't know what's in their hand or what it is, but it's possibility. And I like the idea of it being within their grasp. The youth had a particularly fun time, for whatever reason. It was 4 images painting that particular one with the purple background. Like they love the image. I don't know what it was about that particular one, but everyone was excited to work on that one. There was also a young man who he was just like, I never thought that I was a painter. I never thought that this was something that I could do. But now I feel like, I feel like it's something that I'm capable of doing. There was a few youth who they live right up the street in that neighborhood, and they just took a certain level of pride of being able to say, I created this in my neighborhood, and just to be able to like live down the street from it. And I could show some of the news clips for that too. This mural was painted during the time that the previous president made a comment about Baltimore and rats. And so the news stations came out and they saw this mural and they were like, did you all paint this in response to the president's comment? And of course our response was no. This is a part of Baltimore. We are Baltimore. In fact, this particular mural is called One Baltimore Many Shades. And so if you look at each one of the youth, they all have multiple shades of skin tones. So it's like representative of all the skin tones. So it's a single being with several skin tones to represent that whole name of One Baltimore Many Shades. That we didn't just paint this because of someone's response. You can see this type of thing all around Baltimore all the time. It just so happened that he happened to make that comment around that time. So I talked a bit about community artists, what that looks like, and showed you some of the work. I'll go into now, and this is my own personal philosophy, talking about some of the differences that I find between career-focused artists and mission-focused artists. And I'll get really specific about what that looks like and what that means from my personal purview. And I think being a career-focused artist does not mean that you can't be mission-focused or vice versa. People can look at how I lay it out and see which one they weigh on a little bit more. So in my opinion, when we talk about career-focused artists versus mission-focused artists, for example, career-focused artists focus on recognition. I want to be seen. I want to get my name out there. I want to be recognized. Again, not to say that you can't be career-focused and mission-focused, but if you're largely career-focused, that's a particular of importance. Mission-focused artists, they're really focused on the practice and their craft and really just perfecting that and getting better and that sort of thing. I find that career artists work for production, and they also compete largely with other artists. Mission-focused artists build community, and they build community around that mission. What is it as my mission as a mission-focused artist, and who else has this as part of their vision? And I want to partner with those folks to get that done. They also do a lot more collaborating across disciplines. Whereas career artists, they stay in their lane. I'm going to specialize in this. I'm just going to do this. I'm not going to look at other artists. I also find that collaborative artists, they produce better work. They produce more dynamic work. I think a really good popular culture reference of that is Beyonce. I think Beyonce pulls from and includes poetry, the artistic design, choreography, drummers. I think that the way that those pieces are pulled together to tell a story makes her performances and her music more dynamic. Career-focused artists, they tend to have a scarcity mindset. There's a limited amount of grants. There's a limited amount of opportunity. So I need to hold on to this tight. I don't want to let anybody else know about this grant or opportunity because they might get it and I might not. Abundance mindset or mission-focused artists tend to have an abundance mindset. Let's apply for this together. You have this particular skill set. I have this particular skill set, and we have a similar mission. Let's see how we can work together to make that happen. And I typically, and the reason why I'm including this, because I feel like mission-focused artists tend to be more community artist focused. There we go. So more about what does it mean to be a community artist? These are the other two images that were in the last PowerPoint. So community artists engage with community. I don't feel like a person could be a community artist and not engage with the community, period. I don't think that that's a real thing. Community artists get community input. If you're creating something in the community and you don't have their input, in my opinion, you are not a community artist. And they also have community support. If you don't have community support, again, for me, you have to have these three things. And if you don't have those three things, then you are actually not, a community artist, in my opinion. These are just those images bigger. I'm just going to show you community art in action. And this is just taking you through what was mentioned earlier about working with the youth in the community. And it takes you through the process of how this all came together. I think it's about 2 minutes. I hope my audio is good. But it just takes you through the process of us building as a team first. So at the beginning of the program, I don't know the youth. The youth sometimes don't know each other. So we build as a team. We talk about what community means. We get some history on that particular community. We hear from people in the community. Then we actually go and knock on doors and we ask questions and input. We put together a composite idea of this is what we heard, or this is what we feel like you were saying, and this is what we're envisioning. Excuse me. We share that with the community. The community then is offered an opportunity to give us feedback and say, yes, this is what we mean, or no, you actually missed the mark here. And then we make modifications. But a single drop of paint or even primer does not go on the wall until after we have met with community and they have approved of what we have discussed. And this is just a short composite video to show that process. So that's that full process, and you can see there was different sketches. There were the sketches laid out on the table for people to have comments on them. And then there was the presentation that was really led by the youth. They put together the PowerPoint and talked to the community, and I just kind of stood on the side, kind of just like to support them in that particular process. One of the other things that I mentioned about community or mission-focused artists is that they don't stay in their lane. And so the next slide I'm going to show, or a bit of a video, not a full thing, is a collaborative project wherein you have a physical art component, you have movement, you have schools, and it's also definitely a connection with youth. Is something that's going to always be just central and part of me as who I am. I'm always going to seek ways to include young people in tapping into their creative aspect. One of my core values is creativity and freedom of expression. So that'll show up a bit in this. And again, I won't show this whole video, but I'll just show a piece so that you could get a bit of art in motion and what that looks like. Oh, no, next slide. All right, so this is Art in Motion, and this is a series of step groups. So an organization wanted to activate green spaces, and my solution to them for activating green spaces, and activating meaning they wanted people to populate them and show up in them, because they would create these beautiful green spaces, but people from certain communities, primarily communities of color, would not come into those spaces. And there was something, in my opinion and experience, that was very sterile and said that you weren't welcome here, or we don't want you to be here, or we don't want you being here and being loud, or we don't want you being here loud and being very Black. So in my effort to activate the space, I wanted them to be able to come in the space and be very loud and be very Black, and stomp and make noise. And I felt like if they could come in that space and they could do that, then it could start to feel like theirs, instead of sometimes a distant, very pretty thing like that you're not supposed to touch, like fine china, or my grandmother, when I was growing up, had a room that was just for you to look at and not for you to do anything in. And it was very clear that what that was for. So my solution to them, if you want to activate the space, then let me get some step groups in here to make noise and be very loud and be very Black. And so this is a part of that.
As performers, we do our very best to emphasize on precision and complexity. For all you haters and imitators who just can't comprehend all the grief and attitudes, all the finest in the land.
Stepping has been a wonderful experience. I got closer with some girls that's in different grades than me, and we became a like wonderful sisterhood. And I'm happy to have met them like in Stepping. It was very nice.
I'm not like a socialized person, but like Stepping has broke me out of that, and like we became sisters and brothers and stuff like that.
When you're a part of a team, you have to work together and stay together. And if somebody is falling off, you have to bring them back up.
Ladies, all class, break it down, 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 down.
We're like a sisterhood, I guess you could say. So, like, we have each other's back, and we're very close to each other. So, like, everybody knows each other, everybody's close. So, if you need something, you need help from one of us, we're all there for you.
We dance. We do a lot of things. We also like to help Roland Park. We like to do fundraisers for Roland Park. So we're not just self-centered about us. We're always caring for other groups. So, and we care about the whole school.
My name is Jasmine, and I am shy on this list. I get my reputation because I do it like this.
He do it like this. He do it like this.
I get my reputation because I do it like this.
With STEP, the girls have grown so much. I've seen many of them since they were either in 6th grade or in 3rd or 4th grade at Roland Park, and just seeing them grow, being more disciplined, better grades, because they do have to keep their grades up to be in the STEP program. Being in a sisterhood with others, so learning how to take care of one another, being a part of something and not just only for themselves. I've seen them just grow as a group to become more like a family and a sisterhood.
I was totally humbled and overwhelmed by the.
So I'm gonna stop that video right there. It's longer if anyone ever wants to check it out. But it was very important to activate a space and make people feel welcome. And if folks or institutions want people to feel welcome, let them be themselves in that space. And I appreciated that they activated by stomping, by yelling, by being loud, and by saying, if I am here in this space, I'm going to be fully in this space and not be quiet in this space. This is another school. And what they did is they took on the stepping, and they did a theme of like The Walking Dead. So they made their own costumes. They drew them out what they wanted. They designed them. They came up with a lot of it. It was an entire storytelling production, and it involved many elements of art to speak to that component of not staying in your lane when you are a mission-based or community-based artist, because there's several art forms that could still get the message out if you're focused on the mission and not just staying in your lane. Another aspect that was mentioned earlier, I think it was prior to the camera being on, is cultivating spaces beyond the galleries and museums for expression, and realizing that we are not just visual artists or performing artists, but we also are curators, and we have opinions and thoughts and that sort of thing. And this is a way in which one of my artistic expression is through the counter narrative show. I'm just going to show the 20-second video of the show, and then that'll be the conclusion of me speaking. Then I'll hand it back over. So here is just I don't know if you'll get the full image, but the 20-second video promo, I guess you could say, of the counter narrative show.
I need to know everything, who and the what and the where. I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George. I hop in the Porsche, 5 and a horse. I'm ready for war. I'm coming for throats. To turn to a ghost. I need to know everything.
There. And that is it for me. Thank you so much for everyone taking the time to just listen and engage with the content for as much as you did. Thank you again. If you want to reach out to me, I can be best reached at Art by Rasheem. Or if you want to like check out my art IG stuff, I also have an email, and I'm fine with sharing that as well. And I'm going to hand it back over to the other folks so that they can, I'm going to stop my share, so they could take it away.
Rasheem, I think Antoinette is having something, but I did have a question. Thank you so much for that presentation. It was really incredible. And I was wondering, who are some of your North Star artists? Okay, maybe I'm unmuted. Okay, somebody muted me. Who are some of your North Star artists, and those who have managed to carve out their careers through those combinations of mission and career focused? They've really created their own lane. And to that end, not only in who are the North Star artists, is where do you see your lane taking you in the coming future?
No, Dave, that's such a good question. And it's so hard for me to really pin it down, because I am a gumbo type of person. So I like pull from several different sources. And I really don't want to sound so pop culture and super cliche. Beyonce is definitely one of those artists, gosh. And she's not even a visual artist. Also people like Alice Walker. There's some rappers that do that whole piece of pulling it from multiple pieces. Like there are artists who are rappers that I'll listen to their music and they have borrowed a line from a cartoon that I listen to, a section from, or they'll make a reference to a classic movie or a play that I saw on Broadway, and then mix that in with some other like pop culture references. I feel like I have seen quite a bit more of that show up in performing arts in terms of pulling from multiple sources. Performing artists are not afraid to just try stuff.
No, yeah, I totally agree. There's an immediacy to the performing artists. You know, a painting, a piece of visual art can be made in that moment and stand time forever. But performing artists, they do it again and again and again.
Yeah, and it's so immediate. Like the response and engagement is so immediate, right? So like I can create something and it'll sit in a gallery and it might just be there and I'm not there, or I am there. But there is this one-to-one contact that I feel like performing artists have. And also there's a way in which performing artists, I feel like, take up space.
Yes.
And impact multiple aspects of your sensory, your visual, your smells, sometimes your, hearing, sound, that sort of thing.
Yeah, 100%. Is that part of the excitement of working outside too, and with people? There are more sensories there in just the environment that you're working in?
Yeah, I think one of the things for me that I really appreciate with working outside is I really do like being in community. I really do like being outside. I really like being outside with youth. The garden boxes were really fun because I like playing in dirt. I find the most fun with art when I am able to return to some aspect of my youth.
Yeah.
So whether that is playing in the dirt or writing on the walls or doodling something or getting to be loud and expressive or getting to engage with something and not have it all figured out in the way that I feel like adults feel like they have to have all the answers and have it all figured out. That is fun to me. It becomes play to me. Yeah. And I feel like outside is less restrictive. I think that there's a way in which art, once it becomes institutionalized, in some ways become not for everyone, or you can engage with this art only if you meet certain criteria, or only if you show up in a particular way, right? Whereas art outside, I like outside sculptures. I like that while we were working on the art, folks passed by and honked and said, "Good job." And they brought us water and we got donuts and we got popsicles and that sort of thing. Like I like that sort of engagement. So that's what pulls me to the whole outside component.
Yeah, and sometimes they will give you the brutal honesty you need as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The passerbys. Hey, that doesn't look great.
Right. That is definitely experience that I've had.
So here's one question that came up in the chat is, do you consider artists like Kehinde Wiley to be this career focused or corporate artist? And if so, why? Or if not, why?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I want to say that I feel like most artists probably have a mix of both. Most artists of color probably have a mix of both. And I will honestly say I don't know fully enough about his community engagement to say whether or not he is not a community artist. But I do think that there is a sense with some artists that they are detached, or if he is attached to community, I would want clarity about what community specifically he's attached to, so he's probably not disattached from community. He's just probably not attached to a community that feels like mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Another question is, when you are engaging with youth, do you see those effects, that inspiration coming back into your own work? And if so, do you have any like direct examples that maybe you could speak to?
Yeah. So several. I'll just pick two.
Cool.
One was definitely the young person who was like, I can't draw, I can't paint. I think he actually said this in the news clip too. And he was so enthused about painting. I mean, a number of youth had this feeling, but he directly expressed it. And I knew they were inspired because we're outside paying. It's hot. You know how hot July gets. And it's time for a break. And they are still painting, trying to paint through their break. And I'm having to tell them, I promise you'll be able to get back to that, but I need you to stop and drink some water. Mm-hmm. But they were just so dedicated to like doing it in a particular way, and making sure that they just did a good job. So that's one. I think one of the ones that comes up for me in terms of youth inspiring my art is my most recent exhibition was at UB Blake Cultural Arts Center in June. It ended in June. And the title of that series was called Queer Religion. And it was something that focused on queerness and religion, and just kind of interrogated the false dichotomy between a person being able to be expressively queer and also religious. And that was inspired by a conversation with the youth that was battling with her own sexuality, and feeling like it was at odds with her divinity instead of inspired by her divinity, right? Instead of seeing that her queer self was also a part of her divine sacred self, that she was not separate from God or separate from spirit because of her spiritual expression. So I created the series Queer Religion based off of that conversation. In fact, my daughter, who's a dancer, did a dance in that during the exhibition opening night. And it's her dance is basically, it's an embattled angel. It's an angel battling with themselves, and battling with that false dichotomy that because I am queer, I can't be godly, I can't be of God, or I can't be divine. Just kind of really interrogating that. There was a minister who, or does she go by minister? Or I know she goes by Reverend, who recently said to me in a conversation, and she said it on the Counter Narrative show, and I asked her about it. She said she was not only called to ministry, she was also called to her queerness. Because the highest calling that you have on yourself is to show up in this world fully and completely as who you are. That's what gives people the permission to fully and completely be themselves. And so Queer Religion was inspired by that conversation with that young person who was battling with their identity as a divine being and as a queer being.
That's really powerful that, your direct and in-depth work with young people also made you look in the mirror and think about this in such a way. And also the fact that you were able to collaborate with your daughter in a creative way. Was that one of the first times that you had kind of created a piece with her?
It's so interesting. It's the first time. So it's not the first time in that way. I'll say, and I'll speak more to that. Mm-hmm. So as a artist, and being an artist and also being a parent, but even more specifically being an artist and being a mother, because there's this way in which we interact with gender roles that make the maternal role the primary caregiver and nurturer. So you don't have time for, sometimes these other things. Mm-hmm. Which I would say as institutions, if you're considering grants or funding, fund mothers who are artists who need childcare to work on their craft or to, go to school or things like that. It would be, don't overlook mamas. So I will say there's times where I would be working and I also need to do the work of mothering. right? And sometimes it can feel like, as a mother who has needs of her own, that our children's needs could be in conflict, their need for your attention, your need to fulfill this aspect of yourself. What I started to do is incorporate her into that, where she would just like do little things like help me shade this thing or that thing in. That's one way. Another way in which she's been incorporated in is in two of the murals. They are murals of her, actually, of my daughter. The one that I showed where there's reflecting, looking for hope. That's with a pink background, that's her. And then the one with the yellow background, that's also my daughter. So in that way, she was incorporated. When I did my dissertation is a phenomenological study of African-American mothers and daughters and social identity development and socialization. And that was a way of me also bringing my daughter into as part of, so she's in that way has been always been incorporated and a very strong aspect of my identity as a mom, but not a leading and solitary only aspect of me as a human person. But it was the first time that we got to actually actively collaborate on something. It was nice and it was fun and it was interesting because one of the things that I wanted to teach her is how to speak up for yourself as an artist, how to collaborate. And I told her, you are a professional dancer, so you will be paid. So I paid her for her performance as an artist because she worked on it. She practiced, she didn't take it lightly. So yeah, that was one of the first times. It was a nice experience. I'd definitely do it again if she were up to it.
That's incredible. You kind of just touched on that. We do have some other questions that I'm going to get through. Norma, I will grab you in just one moment. But in relation to kind of what we were just talking about, you spoke about how the thematic elements of queer religion came up. Can you talk a little bit about how you come up with larger themes within your work, with concepts in your work, be it for a full body of work or specific exhibitions?
Yeah, so I think it's largely connected to, I'm a mission-focused artist, and I have a clear, I'm very clear about my artist statement, not just as a statement that's written on my website, but I'm clear about, I feel like what my mission is here and part of my purpose is here. I think art is one of the ways that I do that. I think being an administrator is one of the ways I do that. I think being a mom is one of the ways that I do that. So it's usually largely based out of me wanting to get a point across or tell a story or have a conversation about something. And it has never been one image that could fully tell that story. So with that, I do a series. I usually do at least like 13 pieces in a series. Usually makes me feel like a bit more fulfilled. So in for example, queer religion, I have Adam and Eve. I have Adam spelled Atom. Adam and Eve. I have a two-spirited deity. Mawu Lisa was a two-spirited deity that eventually over time became twins, but it originally started out as a two-spirited deity that had both masculine and feminine energy. And then as it got altered throughout history, it just became two separate people that were twins. But originally that's not how it started out. I have Mary. I re-imaged Mary, Jesus's mother. So just in that, I wanted, like, for example, that conversation with that young person, I wanted to center, and all of the artists in that were identified as queer. I wanted to center that. I wanted to center them and show them as divine beings. So that's how that one came about. So it's usually come about from a conversation or something that I want to share or something that I want to say or express.
Beautiful. Norma had asked, do you work with school groups and youth groups, and how do you enlist students? And I know that YouthWorks is a BCPS program, but there is a specific way that you can work with students. Can you elaborate on how that relationship forms a little bit? And also if there's any direct school groups that you're also working with at the moment?
Sure. So I'm always working with youth professionally, in some capacity or the other one. So I will say for YouthWorks, The Youth Works program is a Baltimore City program. It's an employment program. And what happens is art work sites or artists, or work sites, all not just artists, they sign up to employ youth over the summer. So they could have a variety of jobs. It just so happened in this particular one, and that organization that I worked through with the youth was Jubilee Arts. So youth sign up to work with Jubilee Arts. Jubilee Arts then find artists and pairs those artists with the youth that have signed up for that program. So that's how that one works. So if a person wanted to do a mural program or work with youth, because Jubilee Arts does a lot of things with youth. They also do a youth in business program that teaches youth about art entrepreneurship. That I think is an amazing program. They not only teach the youth about art entrepreneurship, the youth make products and they make money while in the program, and the organization sells it and gives the proceeds directly to the youth artists. So they start to learn how to function and operate as an artist and as a creative person. So I think 901 Arts does something, wide angle youth media. So arts organization that tap into youth works. If a person wanted to work with youth, that's one way. And I think there's several other arts organizations that reach out to youth. When I did Step Into the Garden, that was a grant where they literally was just like, we have this money and we want to activate these green spaces. And my mind went to let kids come and let them be very loud and be very Black. And if you could let them come and be very loud and be very Black, then I am for it. And so they just gave it to me really and said, do whatever you want and reach out to whoever you want. So I reached out to schools and said, hey, do you have a STEP program at your school, or a dance program or something? And if so, just put it in the budget so that we could fund and pay for those youth, and also provide transportation for them to get to these different locations for them to perform. I am not currently working with any youth right now. I would love to. If anyone has an art project that they want a teaching artist to work for, I would love to. I haven't done that enough this year. I usually do it every single year and have done so for like the last 6 years, but coming off of the pandemic, it's a challenge to readjust. But those are some organizations that I would say to go to.
Beautiful. We've got just a couple others. One is the act of creating art, is it tied to that spirituality that you reference kind of throughout your presentation and your work?
Yeah, I believe so, right? Not to get too deep and profound or anything like that. I believe in the ultimate creator. And I think that what I do is create. I think that there is no creation that happens outside of tapping into that. I don't think that a person has to have a particular religious belief to co-conspire with the creator. I think we're tapping into that when we create. When we make something that wasn't there before, which is something that the creator did. It made something that wasn't there before. When we do that, we are tapping into our access to that, in my personal opinion. And that does not, for me, require a specific religion or a specific text. I think it requires us tapping into our divine self and showing up in that way, and allowing ourselves to be really inspired and driven in that way.
Would you, as you reflect on all the work and all the ways in which you work over your career, do you consider yourself a disruptor or a cultural integrator, or both?
I would definitely say I'm more of a disruptor.
Yeah.
I like to call visceral disruption. But I think it's only disruption in certain spaces, right? I think it's a disruptor in certain spaces, and I think in other spaces, it's an invitation for people who weren't in those spaces before to feel welcome into those spaces. I think so often what marginalized populations do is fight for seats at tables. And sometimes when there are no seats at tables, we bring our own chair and try to squeeze and nudge our way in to specific tables. I am a person who probably would either turn over the table or say, hey, let's get together and let's all create our own table. So I would do a bit of that. So I would say a bit of flipping over tables and a bit of saying, you know what you have demonstrated to me is that me showing up in this space as my full self is not welcome here. So I will go and create a space where my full self is welcome, and I will invite other people and allow their full selves to be welcome.
Great, beautiful. Norma is just commenting that she loves your work with the youth, both in the neighborhood and on the circle, and asking, were you on the Roland Park school grounds for that particular project?
No, one of them we were on, I think it was John Hopkins Labyrinth is where the circle was. It was the Labyrinth, I believe. And then there was another one, it was off of 33rd. It's attached to the YMCA that's on 33rd. It's right in front of
the Labyrinth right out front of the Y?
Yeah, that's one area. And then there was another one that's by John. There was like, I think there was 5 spaces. I stopped the video earlier, but there was about 5 or 6 spaces.
Well, Rasheem, just to be aware of our time coming up, what is next for you? What's on the immediate horizon? What is on the distant future? How can people get in contact with you? We have dropped your website and some links to your work in the Facebook chat, so everyone can feel free. But what's next for you? What are we waiting and looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, so I am currently working on a series. I don't know when, you probably won't see it till next year though. And this is breaking news. You're the first to hear about it. Transcendent, and it's just a focus on trans folks and centering them in art and their lives. So that's what I'm working on, like behind the scenes, is transcendence. What else? I am going to be rebooting the Counter Narrative show for a 4th season. That show engages with all types of art and expression. I did a few episodes. Folks go to YouTube and look up Black Artists Matter, on the Counter Narrative show. I did a part 1 and a part 2. They were very informative because one, I talked to visual artists, and then another one, I talked to curators and collectors and space makers for artists and administrators. And that was highly enlightening for me. So I would say the 2 things that are most current or most coming up next on the horizon are Transcendence, which more than likely won't be, you may not see it until you won't see it till next year. In fact, I actually have to find a place that will exhibit at this point. So I'm working on that. And then the Counter Narrative show next season. Those are my 2 things coming up.
Wonderful, and congratulations to all that. Rasheem, thank you so much for your night with us and sharing so much about your work and everything that makes you tick and everything that kind of keeps you driving. We as a council really enjoyed it, and I know the public did as well. So yeah, thank you. Everyone out there, we will be doing this again next month, JJC Talks. It is our monthly second Thursday evening where we speak and get to hear from incredible artists just like Rasheem. I'm going to pass it to Rose, see if she wants to tell us more about October 14th. Rose, you're muted, Rose. Okay, we might have lost Rose, but October 14th, we've got Charles Mason III and Thomas James in conversation. It should be really incredible. Thank you, everyone, and have